In Colombia, several sectors mobilized to support the social reforms promoted by President Gustavo Petro's government. In Türkiye and Syria, the death toll climbed to over 36,000 1 week after the 7.8 magnitude earthquake that hit the two countries. And China and Iran ratified bilateral cooperation ties after signing 20 agreements in the political, economic, and strategic fields. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Thousands of people took to the streets in Colombia's main cities on Tuesday to express support for President Gustavo Petro's health and pension reforms. Labor, teacher, and health worker unions answered a call from the country's first ever left-wing government to support an ambitious battery of reforms submitted to Congress by the president on Monday. The reforms are likely to pass as Petro's left-wing supporters in Congress enjoy a majority thanks to a coalition with centrist and moderate right-wing parties. The head of state explained his reforms in a public address on Tuesday from the seat of power in Bogota. The proposal is considered one of the most important within Gustavo Petro's policy of total peace.
We are not presenting business deals made by the state. We are not pushing further down that road, which did not bring social justice and which led us to be one of the most unequal societies on the planet. What we are presenting are reform bills that seek to true guarantee of the fundamental universal rights for Colombian society.
In Ecuador, the Minister of Agriculture, Bernardo Manzano, resigns, the 10th official to leave office in the corruption scandal of the Godfather. The official resigned after admitting that he had sent his curriculum vitae to Ruben Cherez, who has been named in recent accusations of alleged links to the Albanian mafia and involvement in a public sector corruption network. Manzano's resignation comes just 5 days after the resignations of former government minister Francisco Jimenez and former government advisor Aparicio Caicedo, both of whom were accused of having links to illegal groups operating in Ecuador since 2011. Argentina's government will inaugurate a key pipeline to ramp up production at the Vaca Muerta rock formation, which constitutes the world's second largest unconventional gas reserve and the fourth largest oil reserve. Through Twitter, the Minister of Economy, Sergio Massa, announced on Tuesday the inauguration of a key pipeline for Vaca Muerta that will increase the production and evacuation capacity of the operators in the basin. This was ratified by the head of the Finance Palace when he highlighted that the 105 kilometers long work between the provinces of Neuquén and Rio Negro will allow to extend the current network and evacuate up to 125,000 barrels of crude oil from the field to the refineries in the province of Buenos Aires. In Mexico, the second round of peace talks between the government of Colombia and the National Liberation Army moves forward. The second round is held behind closed doors. However, representatives outlined the topics to be discussed. The parties will address the bilateral ceasefire identified by both sides as an indispensable point to continue the dialogue and to work firmly for peace. The National Liberation Army is also focused on the inclusion of the civilian population to participate in the peace process that they want to achieve in the country. On Tuesday, United States authorities arrested 4 more people involved in the assassination of Haitian President Jovenel Moïse. The arrests include the owner of a Miami area security company that hired ex-Colombian soldiers for the mission. A total of 11 suspects are now in U.S. custody. Meanwhile, no court hearings have been held yet for the more than 40 suspects arrested in Haiti, including 18 Colombian soldiers.
This morning, federal agents from the Federal Bureau of Investigation and Homeland Security Investigations arrested a United States citizen and 2 legal permanent residents living in South Florida and a United States citizen living in Tampa, Florida, for their alleged participation in the plot to forcibly remove President Moïse from office. They are Arcangel Pretel Ortiz, a Colombian national and legal permanent resident of the United States living in Miami. Antonio Intriago, a Venezuelan national and legal permanent resident of the United States also living in Miami. We also have Walter Ventimilla, a United States citizen originally from Ecuador, living in South Florida. And last but not least, we have Frederick Bergman Jr., a U.S. citizen living in Tampa.
And on Monday, Peru's public prosecutor's office informed that the death of 10 demonstrators after the repression of a protest in Ayacucho on December 15th are under investigation. According to local media, the mortal wounds were consistent with those inflicted by Army soldier rifles. In a statement, the public agency indicated that the Specialized Provincial Prosecutor's Office has managed to obtain 147 videos of municipalities and homes near the place of the incidents of December 15th. Local media reports that the forensic ballistic examinations carried out on 9 of the 10 deceased concluded that the entry and exit holes in the bodies are compatible with impacts of 5.56 mm caliber projectiles fired by long-range rifles like those carried by the Army soldiers on the day of the events. Let's take a short break, but first remember you can follow us on TikTok at the account at teleSUR English, in which you'll be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. In Türkiye and Syria, the death toll after the devastating 7.8 earthquake rose to more than 36,000 people. Local authorities have reported the death toll in Türkiye has risen to 31,643, while in Syria the death toll has risen to 4,574. Officials said that search and rescue operations continue, as well as working to shelter those affected. In this context, several countries are sending humanitarian aid to both countries. Also in Turkey, former Newcastle winger Christian Atsu is still missing 9 days after the 7.8 earthquake that rocked the region. While 2 pairs of Atsu's shoes were found in the rubble, the player himself remains missing as the search for him continues. The former Newcastle United and Chelsea footballer moved to Turkey last September and scored his first goal for Hatayspor just hours before the devastating earthquake. Search and rescue operations for survivors continue in the Syrian regions affected by the February 6th earthquake. Authorities in Damascus don't rule out that the death toll may increase as search efforts progress in Aleppo, Latakia, and Hama, among other regions. Authorities are also working on the removal of rubble to speed up the return of thousands of people who are still in shelters. Meanwhile, humanitarian aid continues to arrive in the country to mitigate the needs of those affected by the quake. The blockade and terrorist war imposed on Syria 12 years ago have made the health sector one of the hardest hit. Despite the damage, the country's health workers are doing an excellent job in response to the current difficult situation as a result of the earthquake. Let's see.
At least 5,500 people have been injured in the 4 provinces of Syria that were hit by the earthquake. The 1,131 injured in the coastal provinces of Táchira, as well as others in other affected regions, have all the city's medical personnel at their service, mainly at the Táchira National State Hospital.
We tried to do our duty to work as hard as we could to provide a rapid response. And what helped us was that many doctors from other provinces came to support our work in the midst of the lack of equipment and personnel that we suffered. I hope that the injured will recover soon. May God rest the souls of the deceased.
Not a single doctor has failed in their duty, working day and night, 24 hours a day, to give us all the attention and medical care we need. I am very grateful for the heroism of all the doctors, nurses, technicians, and administrative staff of the hospital.
Despite the lack of medicines, doctors are working day and night to save the survivors of the disasters, equipment and medical supplies. This is a task they say they are carrying out in defiance of the coercive measures imposed by the same Western states that claim to be defenders of human life.
Even before this disaster, we had a shortage of medical equipment and spare parts for the maintenance, but thanks to the will of our staff, we were able to respond quickly. However, the problem is not over yet, and we are in need of a lot of help.
The World Health Organization has seen this harsh reality on the ground. It has distributed 110 tons of medical supplies to affected areas in Syria and called for a redoubling of efforts to reach more affected populations in all regions. The National Hospital in Latakia, like all hospitals in Syria, have lack of medical equipment and supplies due to war and blockade, a situation that demands not only the immediate lifting of the West's coercive measures, but also the help of the international community to deal with the aftermath of the earthquake.
Russian authorities on Tuesday denounced preparations by the Ukrainian regime to create a provocation near the Chernobyl site. According to the Interdepartmental Coordination Center for Humanitarian Response of the Russian Ministry of Defense, Ukraine, with the support of the United States and European countries, are planning a large-scale information provocation to accuse Moscow of violating the Convention on Nuclear Safety in the area of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. After the beginning of the Russian special military operation in Ukraine last February, the Russian forces took under their control 2 of the 5 nuclear power plants located on the territory of Ukraine: the decommissioned Chernobyl plant, which was the scene of the most serious nuclear accident in history on April 26, 1986, and the Zaporizhzhia plant in service, which today is the largest in Europe. More news coming up after a final short break, so don't go away. Welcome back from the South. Chinese President Xi Jinping and his Iranian counterpart Ibrahim Raisi launched bilateral negotiations in the economic, political and strategic fields. The Iranian president arrived this Tuesday at the head of a large delegation for a 3-day visit in which he seeks to strengthen economic cooperation and strengthen relations between the two countries. Among the agreements signed, there are cooperation agreements on crisis management, tourism, information, technology, environment, international trade, agriculture and health. In addition, the head of the Iranian-China Chamber of Commerce informed that Iran will open its commercial representation in China to facilitate the closing of agreements to be established with Chinese businessmen.
China will continue to stay committed to consolidating and deepening relations with Iran. I am willing to work with Mr. President to enhance strategic communication and promote the steady and sustained growth of the comprehensive strategic partnership between our two countries.
Iranian President Raisi said the development of bilateral ties will promote regional and global peace, security and stability.
First, I want to express my sincere gratitude to you and your colleagues for inviting me to visit China and for your warm reception, and extend greetings to you for the Chinese New Year. I believe the effective implementation of the cooperation agreements between Iran and China, the consensus reached between us today, and the development of bilateral ties will promote regional and global peace, security and stability. Although the international situation has kept changing, it will not affect the ties between Iran and China, because Iran will resolutely continue to develop its ties with China.
On Tuesday in China, the 2023 Belt and Road Media Community Summit Forum was held in Beijing with the participation of more than 100 representatives from 33 countries and regions. The participants from more than 50 mainstream media organizations agreed that the Belt and Road Media Community is an important cooperation mechanism of the Belt and Road Initiative in the news field. Over the years, it has gathered extensive media power and actively carried out practical cooperation, making important contributions to deepening people-to-people and cultural exchanges. After 7 years of development, the Belt and Road Media Community has now more than 100 institutions in 63 countries and regions. The government of Iran announced on Tuesday it plans to increase gas production by 50% by 2031. Executive Director of the National Oil Company of Iran, Mohsen Koyateh, stated that the company's plan for the next 8 years is to increase the volume of gas production from almost 1 billion cubic meters per day to 1.5 billion cubic meters per day. Koyateh emphasized that to achieve this increase in production, it will require investments of approximately $70 million. The oil company CEO also added that the company plans to increase the volume of gas production in the central regions of the country to 142 million cubic meters and invest $3.6 million in 13 natural gas fields in the country. The UN Secretary-General warned Tuesday that global warming could force a mass exodus on a biblical scale as people flee low-lying communities and called for legal frameworks to be implemented in preparation especially for refugees.
Rising seas are sinking futures. Sea level rise is not only a threat in itself, it is a threat multiplier. For the hundreds of millions of people living in small island developing states and other low-lying coastal areas around the world, sea level rise is a torrent of trouble. Rising seas threaten lives and jeopardize access to water, food, and health care. Saltwater intrusion can decimate jobs and entire economies in key industries like agriculture, fisheries, and tourism. It can damage or destroy vital infrastructure, including transportation systems, hospitals, and schools, especially when combined with extreme weather events linked to the climate crisis. And rising seas threaten the very existence of some low-lying communities and even countries.
In Chile, a member of the fire brigade died, and the death toll rises to 25 after the forest fires that hit several regions of the country. Authorities lamented the death of Felix Perez, who died as a result of a falling tree while he was making a fire break for his forestry company. Officials expressed their sympathy with the relatives of the deceased. In view of this, the country has been affected by the burning of more than 400,000 hectares. However, the Chilean nation registered that 60 of the 300 forest fires are being fought, at the same time that the work to mitigate them in their totality continues. We have come to the end of this news briefing. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.